Hi everyone, Rob Power here from University of Ontario Institute of Technology and the International Association for Mobile Learning. Welcome to this vodcast on defining mobile learning, part of the Teaching and Learning with Mobile Technology summer vodcast series. I'm here today with Dr. Aga Palalas from Athabasca University. She is the president of the International Association for Mobile Learning. And we'll start off today. Aga, could you tell us a little bit about the International Association for Mobile Learning and its role?
Hi, everybody. Good day to all of you. Well, the International Association of Mobile Learning has been around for over a decade. It's a membership organization that aims to promote excellence in research, development, and application of mobile learning, as well as contextual learning. And you will see through our conversation today that the two really go hand in hand. Our organization, the association, organizes the annual mLearn International Conference, and we also manage a website, IAmLearn website, that collates and disseminates information about new mLearning projects, news, emerging technologies, teaching resources, mLearning news through our regular mLearning letter. The association aims to stimulate cooperation with national representations, national associations and communities on mobile learning. And we invite everybody who is interested in contributing their knowledge, expertise, experience in mobile learning and contextual learning to contact us and collaborate with us. What is very important is, as I said, the fact that we get to meet our community and exchange our expertise at our annual conferences. This year, we are going to have our conference in October in Sydney, Australia. This is going to be the 15th World Conference on Mobile and Contextual Learning. It will be hosted at the University of Technologies in Sydney, Australia. And through this conference, as all the other conferences, the 14 conferences in the past, we work together, share our research in order to promote the understanding and development of mobile learning. Very important that we share our research on the various aspects of mobile learning. We are inviting both researchers and this year's also practitioners. And we continue our dialogue offline. We continue the dialogue face-to-face. And this is our opportunity to also share all the news about developments, all the questions, have discussion, talk to our students. We invite doctoral students for a separate strand, which is designed for doctoral students to present their early research and receive our feedback so that they can actually refine their research proposals, research findings, etc., etc. We also encourage, it is our aim to encourage the study and research as well as implementation of mobile learning solutions and mobile applications in teaching and learning as well as training. We also hope to stimulate personal and professional development through our presence, through our support. So that's very important. And we provide the forum for discussion, as I mentioned already. So once again, everybody who's watching here, if you're not already part of our association, I really hope that you're going to join at our website. At the end of this session, we make sure that we type in the address to the website. If you could help me with that, Rob, that would be fantastic. Enjoy the dialogue and the sharing of resources, questions, expertise to take mobile learning to the next level.
Okay, and that website address is, I believe, IAmLearn.org. And Aga, there have been a lot of attempts over the past few years at defining what mobile learning is and what mobile learning isn't. Why has there been such difficulty in nailing down a precise definition of mobile learning?
There's been, interesting how you put it, that there's been difficulty. It depends how we look at it. There has been a number of definitions, all of them having some common elements. There are components that all of these sure, and we will talk about those in a moment, but there are also certain discrepancies and differences in what different researchers and literature consider or define as mobile learning. I tell you the main reason being of the diverse perceptions is the various context. It's the various educational context that that we have been studying and we have been trying to apply the mobile learning in. So there is a number of other elements at play, and already in 2007, Traxler did mention, and not much has changed since then, that the notion of mobile learning is not necessarily very clear due to the diverse perceptions that come that stem from the diverse context that we are coming from. Communities often define mobile learning based on their unique experiences, unique needs, and backgrounds. So obviously, if we are looking at mobile learning usage in, let's go a little bit macro, in developing countries as opposed to in developed countries, in learning as opposed to training, we are going to be seeing different emphasis in those definitions of what mobile learning actually is. So I already mentioned the context that shapes our perspectives, but I also should mention the needs, right? So the needs for mobile learners, well, again, let's take a simple example of mobile learning being mobile-assisted language learning. Mobile-assisted language learning really relies on the affordances of mobile learning to learn in the context, in the real-life context, where the learners can benefit from real-life language situations, from interacting with real language spoken in the streets of the environment in which the language is naturally spoken. So real-world practice. Well, you're not going to be saying the same about people studying business. The main notions, the concepts and notions of business are very difficult to be practiced and situated in the real world environment due to a number of sensitivities, a number of privacy issues, etc., etc. So here you go. You already see within this one example of using embedded learning, situational learning. You see different situations where for language learners, mobile learning is going to be interaction mediated by mobile devices, not necessarily the same situation for business learners. So there you go. What is available to you as a tool is also an important deciding factor in how you're defining mobile learning. Right, so there's been a lot of discussion, quite often technocentric discussion about mobile learning being viewed as learning with mobile devices, and then the question of what mobile devices actually are. Now, not that much discussion about laptops being or not being mobile devices today, but a decade ago, I remember focusing a lot of our conversation on deciding what actual mobile devices were used for effective mobile learning, and the discussion what features and characteristics of devices actually make them useful as mobile learning devices. So today we've decided that, for example, laptops are not necessarily considered mobile devices, but they still, in some discussions, are considered devices that can be used and can leverage mobile learning. So there you go. Not mobile devices, but can be used for certain aspects of mobile learning. But before we talk about the various elements, I think the question has been answered. Let's move on to your next question.
What would you say are the essential elements to include in a definition of mobile learning?
I think I did mention that element that does repeat in various definitions, and I already kind of pre-warned you that we have to be careful not to be technocentric. But that common element in all the definitions is for sure that we do need some kind of a tool, technology that is going to enable mobile learning. So being careful not to define mobile learning as learning with mobile devices, we have to include that element as an enabler and moderator, mediator tool to actually mediate the interaction and the learning, or provide performance support, or provide information, access to information. So we have that element of technology, that's for sure. But the most important element is actually the element of mobility. And then there is a question of mobility. What do we need by mobility? Crampton, in her definition from 2014, speaks about mobile learning being learning across multiple contexts through social and content interaction using personal electronic devices. So she does talk about learning across multiple contexts, which points to the mobility of the learner. There are many other definitions that actually emphasize the mobility of the learner. And I think that's a very important element when we talk about the learner and the learning spanning across temporal and geographical spaces. So when we now talking about crossing these various spaces, we obviously have to mention the concept of flexibility. And for me, what mobile learning has offered to us, what other approaches to learning, methods of learning, strategies of learning has never offered to the very same degree, is the flexibility. And as I said already, the flexibility across both location and time. Now, let's be careful and not consider that flexibility as learning anytime, anywhere, whenever, whatever. Now, I would be a little bit careful here, because is it always and everywhere then that we can learn effectively? We might be able to access information when we need it on demand, in a flexible way, just in time. Are we actually learning, and what is learning? So it's very important for us to understand when learning occurs, and it's very important to ask ourselves and answer the question as a community, what mobile learning under the new circumstances, when we can take it outside of the classroom into the real world and support it with mobile devices that provide some kind of modeling, support, scaffolding, and generally speaking, moderation and mediating of learning. What is learning? Is it really taking? Is it acquiring and building new information? Is it seen more from the constructivist angle? Is it seen more from, for example, behaviorist angle when people are memorizing things, listening to podcasts? Or is it some totally new framework, theoretical framework that we need to talk about learning today? Another thing that's happening when we're talking about flexibility and crossing spaces, crossing boundaries, we now with mobile learning have been able to cross the boundary between the formal and informal learning. Is there any boundary anymore? When do we stop learning formally and start learning informally? There is actually an opportunity, and I guess we've observed a lot of seamless connection between formal and informal learning. So that's yet another element that you would see in many of the definitions of mobile learning, that seamless connectivity between formal and informal learning episodes and experiences. Now, so I've mentioned the pedagogy being a very important element of it, and I'd like to always emphasize that we have to keep on asking ourselves what pedagogical approaches are enhance the effectiveness of mobile learning. Is the temporal flexibility actually and location, geographical flexibility, what is most important for us? Can we always, going back to the idea of there being some limitations of when and where we can learn, and mobile learning not being truly anywhere, anytime, from the perspective of a few researchers, including myself, I'd like to mention some of these limitations. For example, can you listen to a podcast, engage with it really well, and learn whatever new notions when you're in on a very hot day in a very busy, loud place, feeling tired and being able to hardly hear the podcasts? Okay, so these are just very common human limitations that we are experiencing. Are you able to engage with the content if you're listening to that content 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there, being constantly interrupted and not, again, really being able to focus and reflect on what you're listening? Is that an okay approach to be learning certain new concepts, but not maybe all that good to actually practice critical thinking and reflection? Now, another thing, because we're talking about components and we don't have, the important components, and we don't have all that much time, is mobile learning, due to the various aspects that I've already mentioned, does offer increased student certainty. It can really be, and it has a potential to offer more personalized learning. By personalized, there are so many different dimensions of learning being personalized, but let's remember those of the learner actually choosing the time and pace of learning, right? Or having the flexibility of choosing in what sections to be learning the content, to be engaging with the content. Also, individual. So these individual learning preferences should be worked into the design of mobile learning, because students are using their personal mobile devices. They're feeling already comfortable using those devices as enablers and mediating elements of their learning process. There might as well be using these devices in a customized, personalized learning environment. So we have elements of flexibility and some elements of freedom. There's been This is actually an observation from my students. Very interesting discussion we had just a couple of weeks ago about defining mobile learning. I said if you had to compare mobile learning to, for example, e-learning, and there is obviously some overlap, what would be the first unique characteristic of mobile learning that you would point to? So how is mobile learning different from e-learning? What is the first characteristic feature of mobile learning that screams at you? And they use the word freedom. Freedom, I would think they meant more flexibility, but as a student engaged in the mobile learning experience, they felt free to choose, free to learn whenever they, whenever it was conducive to learning and whenever they chose this learning to be happening. So yeah, portability of learning and convenience is very important. The fact that you can be learning online and offline, the fact that you could be accessing expertise, information, of experts, human resources, and written and multimedia resources, more or less at a time. There could be, well, in some way useful for you, beneficial to your learning experience. The fact that mobile learning potentially could be device agnostic, it's very important. That's what I like to emphasize when discussing mobile learning. It has that potential. So as designers, we should keep that in mind. And I know that there's a lot of conversation about mobile learning being offered in smaller units, and but that has to be, once again, very carefully designed for it to actually being chunked up in a proper way, so that it ends up in a learning that is effective, not only efficient. Just thinking. Yeah, so there you go. This is your main elements. Of being cognizant of time, I'm going to pause here.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Aga. So a lot to think about there. Is there anything else you'd like to comment on or add before we wrap up?
Yeah, very, very quickly. I started saying that it's, I think now that I've mentioned all the various elements, and I mentioned that discussion with within the community and my students about the unique features of mobile learning, I think that that's the question I'd like to leave with you. What are the unique features? How is mobile learning different from all the other approaches? And I've already mentioned to you a couple of these elements, and one of them being context. So I think having talked to a lot of experts, having looked at a lot of research, I think that being able to contextualize our learning is one of the main features that mobile learning introduced. And I think we should really leverage that affordance, and that it hasn't been leveraged up to its potential yet. So remember, when talking about flexibility of mobile learning, there are some limitations to that flexibility, and as instructional designers or mobile learning experts, you really have to consider that very, very carefully. Do not be technocentric in the way you see your mobile learning. The tools that we're using are going to be changing. They have been changing for the last 15 years since we started talking seriously about contextual and mobile learning. And now we're looking at wearable devices more than anything else, right? So the tools are going to be there. They're going to be becoming more convenient for us to afford that flexibility we've been talking about. So let's look at how mobile learning is different and not consider it at shrunk e-learning. Okay, it is not e-learning translated into the small mobile device screen, and that's the message I'm leaving with you. This is not shrunk e-learning. Mobile learning, it has its own capabilities, and I challenge you to think of how it's different and what its unique affordances are.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Aga, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thank you very much, and have a great day.